Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Sped Talks with me, your host, Donna Steele. In fact, this is the last episode in season 1 of Sped Talks. Yes, we have culminated 12 episodes. Given work schedules, motherhood, and all, I managed to do that. So I'm feeling a little bit proud of myself. Now, in today's episode, we're going to talk about strategies for helping your child with study skills and homework. I know that the school year is just around the corner to wrap up. So I figured, children are going to need to study because exams are around the corner. If they're not already, because exams are throughout the year for some. So I found it fitting to put together a little presentation to help with study skills and homework. Now, this is not just for your special education student. This will be beneficial for any student. So I hope you enjoy this video. And as usual, feel free to reach out to me. Let's get into the video. Strategies for helping your child with study skills and homework. And this presentation is divided into 2 parts. We're going to focus on study skills first, and then we're going to focus on homework skills. Learning styles. This is very important. For me personally, before I teach or before I provide any form of intervention to any students, whether in my full-time job or just, privately, I always want to ascertain a student's learning style. So I would often give them a learning style survey so that I know how they learn. This is important because you don't want to be administering treatment or trying to remedy this situation without knowing how the child learns. It will be counterproductive if you decide to provide certain strategies that are not in alignment with the child's learning style. So this is something that this is where you want to start. When we talk to know how to help them to study. When we talk about learning styles, we're talking about visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Does the child learn by seeing? Does the child learn by hearing? Does the child learn by doing, a little bit more hands-on? Or does the child learn by a combination of each? Maybe visual, they learn both ways, visual and auditory. Or maybe I like to mix it up sometimes as well with my students, especially for those who, when you give them the learning style inventory and it doesn't give you a concrete, the information comes back somewhat inconclusive, where it's not telling you if it's visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Then in that case, the child might not necessarily have a preference and will benefit if you use all 3 learning styles. Everyone learns differently. Study in ways that are most helpful to you. So when I leave you after this presentation, if nothing else sticks, learn that everyone learns differently. So it is important things are customized or individualized for each of our students when necessary. Visual learners. So we talk about visual learners. These are some of the strategies that will help them in studying. You want to highlight or underline main ideas. You want to make an outline or map of main ideas to study for a test. Do something that they can see. You want to list things. You want to draw things, copy word. That's what they want to do to make sure the information stays with them. Use index cards to make flashcards. You know what? I remember in high school, that was a common thing that we used. We used index cards, and that's what our teachers told us to do. And everybody did that. But yet still, some people still fail. So now I'm looking back, hindsight, I'm like, maybe the index card really worked with those who were visual learners. And maybe the others learn a different kind of way, I don't know. Something to think about. Use a computer or draw on a chartboard as you study. So visual learners, this is what these are some of the things that will be beneficial for them. Use assignment books to write down assignments daily. This, even though it's right here, I recommend that for everybody, regardless of how they learn. You want to make sure you have your homework or your assignments written down in a place where you know where it's at and it's easily accessible. Never watch TV while you're studying. And I think this one makes a lot of sense, because if you're a visual learner, you're trying to study, you're looking at a TV that is projecting visual information to you, and you're trying to study when you're a visual learner. That might be detrimental to the process. Auditory learners now, these are some of the strategies that they will benefit from. Read aloud instead of silently. Tape record items to study and play the information back. Recite along with the tape. Use music to help you learn. Put information to a tune you know, or make up a song or a poem. And I know that this one works for a fact, because I have students who are auditory learners, and whenever we put things in a mnemonic form or we put it in a song or a poem, they say the information, they tend to retain it a lot better. Have another person quiz you and review information aloud. Study in a quiet place with no distractions. And let me go back to the auditory. I don't have it here, but something that I always tell my students, the ones who are auditory, or just students in general, I find that it works before bed. That is the time I like to wait to review information, because your brain works in the night. When you're asleep, it's working. So the last thing that goes in, it usually holds on to and help process it and put it wherever it needs to go in terms of memory. So that is something I encourage, not just my auditory learners, even my visual learners. You might want to do what you do to study, visually, to make sure you retain it before bed. And the same thing with my auditory learners, read aloud to yourself before bed. Kinesthetic learners now, these are the ones that have to have hands-on. They have to be a little bit more hands-on in the learning process. And for them, use objects like coins, beans, blocks, etc. to help understand math. Not just math, but wherever, you can use those tangible objects to bring across the information. Trace spelling or vocabulary words in sand or salt, or use magnetic letters to spell words out on the refrigerator, for example. You can also use Play-Doh or flour to reinforce certain concepts that you want the child to retain. Use maps, globes, puzzles to study history and geography. Teach the information you must learn to someone else using a chalkboard to write or draw the information. You remember? I don't know if you guys remember. Well, I don't know you guys, but I remember in my childhood, teaching was something that we would often play. We'd often play the teacher and the student, and someone would always be recording something on a board and pretending to be the teacher. It's the same thing. Use that kind of role play to get them to want to retell what they have learned. And then you, the person who is receiving the information, can clarify whether it's right or wrong, or it needs further, clarification to bring across the point that they're trying to make. Have someone talk through the information with you while you do something active, whether it be shoot basket, jump rope, walk around. And this, again, is something that we do without realizing that we're appealing to the kinesthetic learners when, you might be cooking something and somebody telling you something, walking you through the information, or kind of like what I do with my own child. I might be at the kitchen sink and she's telling me something that has to do with her day or her learning, but things of that nature. Or they're doing something and you're talking to them about the information. take breaks often during study time. And this is not just for the kinesthetic learner. It's there because their bodies are moving and hence they probably get a little bit tired. But take breaks. That is for anybody who is studying. You don't want to have your brain just working. You do what is called a brain break. Have adults help you develop a system to stay organized. Now, this is a big one, and it's not just for kinesthetic learners, it's for everybody, even though I have it just them more than others. Staying organized is also a major part of the study process, because if you're not organized, then you're probably going to wait until last minute, so your time management might come into play, and you might not be able to find your notes and things of that sort. So staying organized is key to any study process or even homework for that. The study environment is also another factor to consider. It should be comfortable, but not too relaxing. And I think you know why, right? Because if it's too relaxing, what's going to happen? You're going to fall asleep. Of course, I find myself doing that sometimes because I try to do it in my bed, but really and truly, I need to sit at a table and do it like it's serious business. So you want to ensure that it's not relaxing, but comfortable. So you want to choose a place where you're able to write neatly and stay alert. You want to study in the same place every day. That way your mind is conditioned that this is where the serious work takes place, and have some level of consistency. So your brain realizes that, kind of like when you're in school, your brain realizes that, and it realizes the seriousness of the situation and know that this is where we're not going to joke out anything. We're going to be ready for the work. Light. You want to make sure you use good lighting. So it doesn't mean you need to have the light bulbs on. It just means that it needs to be well lit where you can see, not too dim, but also not too bright that you must squint. Sound. Find a quiet place where you aren't interrupted by others, the radio or TV or other noises. I know that some children struggle with this because maybe their physical house is not as big enough where everybody can find a room and be to themselves. But this is where parents come in. They have to make sure that students have access to, a comfortable enough environment where the studying can take place. And there's not a lot of distraction, especially with our special ed students, that especially the ones who have a problem with being inattentive and paying full attention to what they're supposed to be doing. The onus is really on the parents to ensure that the environment is conducive. Temperature, you want to find a comfortable spot where you're not too cold or not too hot. Learning strategies now. Talk about learning strategies. There are several, and these are just a few that I have compiled. So the first one I have here is that you need to categorize information by grouping information into groups of similar ideas. Everybody knows that when you categorize, it makes things easier, right? And like in the supermarket, when you're going to purchase your grocery, if you produce a list and you have things in category, you're going to get certain items from certain set of that are together. Category, you want to sequence skills to put information in order. So that is something that an adult will help the child to navigate depending on the age of the child. Another one, you want to find the main idea and the part reading. So for those middle school and high school students where the content is just so much in the Jamaican context, from grade 4, the content is really heavy. There's a lot of reading for meaning. And as such, when you read for meaning, you're talking about a lot of information. And you're finding the main idea. The main idea tells you what the paragraph is about. You don't just want to be reading and not sure what is the main idea. Then you want to find those details to support the main idea, highlight main ideas, and outline or map out information read. Again, this is for though when the content is a lot. And again, in the Jamaican situation, from fourth grade all the way to sixth grade in the elementary school, it can be a little bit heavy. In the States, it really starts in middle school through high school when it gets really heavy. So these are some of the things you want to consider when it comes in ideas and reading a paragraph. The next, use context to find the meaning of new words. Use a dictionary if context clues don't help. And I've realized that not a lot of people use dictionaries anymore. People are more, if they want to know something, they type it in the internet, and nothing's wrong with that. So I'm just looking at how times have changed, because one of the things that was always on our book list in Jamaica was a dictionary. And having transitioned to the state, I've noticed that kids don't really walk with dictionaries. They don't have it in their book bags. Just the other day, I even asked a student, consult your dictionary, and he looked at me kind of confused, like, what is she saying? So I just thought that was a little bit strange. So I wanted to mention that. Context clues, a lot of times we encounter big words and not sure what it means in a sentence, but there are tricks to it. If you read the sentence and you understand the other words in the sentence in terms of their meanings and know how to pronounce them, then that one word that throws you off, if you get the context, then the clues in the sentence, context, and then you would figure out what the meaning is. A dictionary oftentimes help us with this, but we have the internet, so no problem there. Use illustration and charts in the textbook to help you understand information read. That's the whole point of illustrations and charts. Sometimes we have to teach our students how to do this. They will see it and not necessarily know what it means and how to use it to help them to understand information read. Let's talk about how parents can help with the study skills. Our next slide will address. Help child manage time to complete assignments. So this is where you're going to discuss some of the steps needed for longer assignments, help them get started on big assignments, give practice tests. This is where you come in, help them. You would have an idea as to what they have been learning in school, and in such a way you want to help them by giving them practice tests to kind of prep them, get them prepared for the actual test. Now, I know this cannot always be done because some parents don't have the knowledge and the know-how to do this. But if you know you don't, this is where you ask for assistance from a number of different sources, including the teacher. And I'll touch on that a little bit more before I end this presentation. Help avoid last-minute cramming. Review nightly with your child, if possible. If the child is independently enough to do it, him or herself, no problem. But for our little young ones, or the ones in elementary schools, you want to help them, on primary schools, prep schools, whatever you call it in your country. You want to help them as much as possible to review nightly. Talk with your child about how to take a test. And a lot of this is also on the internet. So you don't necessarily have to know, yourself, but there you can put in test taking strategies, and some of it will come up, as well as some teachers will prepare their students at school, but you can also ask the teacher to help you in that regard. And how we do this, and you might want to say to them, read instructions carefully before you start. Keep a track of time, because most of the tests, especially in Jamaica, these tests are timed. Do the easy ones first. That is also that helps build the confidence as they go along, and takes away from the being anxious, so that they, some children get really anxious when they're taking tests, but it will build their confidence if they know some of the questions, or some of the answers to the questions rather. Hence, do the easy ones first, as well as it cut down on the time It helps you to keep track of your time carefully if you do the easy ones first. Don't spend too much time on one question. Parents can also help by talking about the assignments. So once a child gets, you know that they're going to school and you know that there are certain requirements. So don't not talk to your child about an assignments when you know that you go to school. So when we expect that there's some work that needs to be done from the home side to get a grade. So ask your child, speak to your child, what assignments you get. Do you understand what to do? Do they need help in understanding the assignments? Do they have everything they need for the assignment? Some children who are not organized, it's the last minute they will probably broach the subject. And some of the assignments may need monetary involvement where you're going to have to purchase this or purchase that. So ask the questions on time and not at the last minute. Does that answer make sense? These are things that you want to ask. Another thing that how parents can help, you want to watch for frustration because students will get frustrated and what to do if they're in fact frustrated. You want constructive criticism if you're in a position to. You want to do that. You want to praise and encourage, and this is even more important than all of it, because just like how we go to work and we get frustrated and we get annoyed with our work situation, it's the same thing with children. And if our boss doesn't give us give us that praise and encouragement, then we don't feel motivated and we don't want to continue. So as parents, we want to praise and encourage as much as possible. And that brings us to homework. What's the purpose of homework? Review and practice what was taught. That's the main purpose, what was taught in school. It's also for the preparation for the next day's class. You want to learn to use resources. So homework help resources like how to use the library, website, reference books, etc. It allows us to explore subjects more fully than class time permits, because class time is not enough to really get into that deep dive that is necessary to really understand a subject matter. Another purpose is to apply skills learned to new situations, as well as to integrate different skills learned into a single task, maybe a project or a book report. Teach students to work independently. Of course, when you're home and you're doing your homework, chances are it's going to be your child, or if you're a parent, your child who's going to need to put in the work independently. But guess what? The child has you to assist as much as possible. So teach students to work independently. Encourage self-discipline and responsibility. Create understanding between families and teacher. Yes, it does that, because now the child is expected to do this work or this assignment under the guide of his or her parent. So this is where the family comes into play, and and the teacher is no longer into play at home, but there is room for that communication between the family and the teacher if that need arises. So it creates that understanding between families and teacher. Teacher knows what she's expecting, and ultimately the family knows what they're expecting in terms of a grade. And if that communication is not there, or that general understanding, then the expectations might not be met. Provide opportunities. Let me go back. Sorry. Provide opportunities for increased communication. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Homework duration. And this is an important one. Homework depends on age and skill of a child. And I say this, and I should have underscored this and highlighted it and underlined it, because I feel like for me, homework is not always necessary. It depends on the age and the child. So for a lot of when I was really teaching special education students, and I had them full time, or necessarily homework that was required of them because of it depends on their skill, as well as their age, but also a lot of other factors because I'm looking at the students individually. So when I look at my students individually, I realize not everybody would need to do the homework, or not everybody needed homework just because of things that they had going on individually. So I made a decision after talking with parents that this wouldn't be required of some children. Now, while others, if they have the capacity to do it, as well as, the support to do it, then of course there is always things that parents can do for engagement or enrichment that all my students had access to. But this one is a big one because I realize teachers, let me not just say people, teachers give homework without a clear expectation in mind. So I saw even 4-year-olds getting homework to build a major project. Now, let's be real. If it's not in alignment with the curriculum, how are we giving homework to build this major project? It's not in alignment with the curriculum. And we know a 4-year-old is not able to build a project. So we're expecting that from the parent, aren't we? So these are just some of the things that we want to bear in mind before we're just giving homework as busy work or just work to keep you occupied to say I gave you homework. If it doesn't make sense and if it's not in alignment with what the child needs to come out with, then I don't see it as productive homework. Recommendation. It is recommended by the experts that 10 minutes per grade level is given for homework. And that is also another contention with parents. Because like for some of my students who I would say on a private basis, and parents would call me up to help their students with the homework. 2 hours worth of homework for a third grader. Now, that is outrageous to me. So, but the experts have recommended this 10 minutes per grade level. So when we're talking about kindergarten to second grade, we're talking about 10 to 20 minutes of homework. Third through sixth grade, we're talking about 30 to 60 minutes of homework. So no more than 1 hour. 7 to 9, more time amount may vary from night to night because now it's broken down into subject. Also want to be mindful that we can't give students homework that is going to take up their entire night because that's where the frustration comes in and that's where they don't love school, The love for school will no longer be there. And then the enjoyment that we want them to have to learn, it's not going to be there. Now, some students, again, it's a case-by-case basis because then you have those students who are really gifted and talented and they don't mind and they are asking for it. But homework should be meaningful and productive and not just giving you work to give you work, if that makes sense. Homework tips for parents. You want to help your child choose a homework drop spot for completed homework. So guide them to always put completed assignments in the same spot. So if you know you have a high schooler who isn't doing so well in school and when they do their homework and you need to double check it to make sure, it's acceptable. When you come home from work, if you come home late, you might say put it on the dining room table where I can see it and I can check it. That's where I eat, so chances are I will see it. So you want to find a designated, consistent spot for your child to put the homework so that you can check the homework. Another tip, you want to set up a study area, have your child do homework in the same spot every night. And I talked about that up the top because you want to have that consistency. You want them to, whenever they're sitting there, they're thinking about, being assertive and not fooling around and being serious to get the homework done. You want to create a homework survival kit where you keep all supplies in the study spot. You don't want them to be running and saying, oh, I can't find my pencil, I can't find my pen. And as parents, how many of us are guilty of this? So if you have a nice little desk, a nice little area where they do their homework, you want to make sure everything is easily accessible. Their pens are sharp, pens are there, pencils are sharpened, writing paper, colored pencils, markers, crayons, ruler, pencil, sharpener, erasers, glue, and everything else, your dictionary. You want to make sure it's there. And you want to make sure you have it in your home so that when they're doing their homework, they have everything they need, or at least the basics in place. You want to schedule daily homework time, same time each night. Be consistent with this. You don't want to, you have homework, we'll start on a homework at 6 o'clock, for example, rather than, oh, tonight I'm going to start 7, tomorrow I'm going to start 8. No, you want to make sure it's consistent. That way they're in a routine and they know what the expectations are. Another tip, you want to allow your child to let you know when homework is too frustrating. Don't sit there and you see them doing their homework and you see their face makeup and you're not asking what is happening. You want them to let you know when it's too frustrating. And if it is too frustrating, then you probably want to give them a break, and resume, or you want to sit and help them to reduce that level of frustration. Encourage your child to do homework independently whenever possible, if they can. This will teach them to develop independent skills such as how to follow directions, begin and complete a task, manage time, monitor that homework is being done. Only give help if a child has shown real effort to do the work first. So even if it's a little bit challenging, you want to have them do some part of it and then you meet them halfway to help them if possible. Want to motivate your child with praise. I touched on this a little bit earlier. Each night, praise your child about some specific accomplishment. Focus on a goal that they have set. So maybe you want to even start by setting goals before the school year or once the school year roll around. And then you use those to produce the praise. Oh, I saw that you did this. Good job, so and so. Oh, you did this. You have your things out, just whatever. I don't even know. It depends on your child and what you think they need to work on. But that praise is important. It cannot be that every time your child does something, you have something negative to say. Find something positive to say, if it's even to say, I noticed that you didn't make any mistake when you wrote this. So when you sentence, make sure you praise the child whenever necessary. Use a long-range planner with your child to help them successfully complete longer projects. Teach them how to break the assignment down and distribute it over the period of time given for the project. Have your child take necessary breaks. Study 20 minutes, take 5 minutes. Not a very long break, not more break than you're actually studying. Limit homework time to the amount the teacher says it should take to complete. Next tip, never give a child more than a few answers on any assignment. If they still don't understand, this is where you have to write the teacher a note, letting them know the child is having difficulty. Don't do homework for them. So if you see yourself doing way more, then that means your child isn't understanding and it doesn't make sense. Talk with the teacher if the child struggles with homework. Arrange for tutoring if needed. Next tip, step back if you feel yourself losing your temper or patience. Don't let your frustration make your child feel stupid for not understanding. I know sometimes as parents, and I even get that way sometimes, something as very simple that seems very simple for us, our children seem to have difficulty with it. And as such, we're not as tolerant and our temper may come into play. But whenever you see this is happening, take a step back. Really, take a step back. Because at the end of the day, we don't to mess with our children's self-esteem by saying things that we really don't mean, but in the moment it comes out. Take a step back, take a break before getting to that point. Work with teachers to resolve problems. This is very important. And a lot of us are guilty of not necessarily working with the teacher until it's too late. And at that time, our children, can't necessarily benefit from what we're trying to do at that point, because then the school year is almost over with. So we want to learn to resolve problems with teachers early on. So you talk with your teacher early in the school year before any problem arises. Contact teacher as soon as you suspect a problem. Request a meeting with teacher to discuss concerns, explain what you think is going on. Let teacher know if your child finds assignments too hard or too easy. And if it's too easy, you really want to contact your teacher as well, because too easy means that they're not being challenged. And that in itself will bring frustration as well. Or find time to do, they say the devil find time for idle hands. Yes, if it's too easy, that might be what might be going on, and we don't want that. Work out a way to solve or lessen the problem. Keep communication open and clear. Follow up to make sure plan you set up is working. So you want to follow up with the teacher to make sure whatever plan you have in mind, whatever plan you have set up is working. Tell teacher when you have concerns. Child refuse, and the concerns maybe child refuses to do homework. You want to tell her that or him that early instructions are not clear. Can't help child get organized to finish assignments. Can't provide needed supplies or materials. And that's a big one. You want to let the teacher know if you are not in a position to provide the materials that are needed to do homework or to even do any form of schoolwork. Can't understand purpose of assignments. Assignments are too hard or too easy. Homework is assigned in uneven amounts. None one night, too much another night. That is also something very important that you want to bring to the teacher's attention. And some of this I've said before. Your child has missed school and has assignments to make up. And I just want to end here. And I want to put this, I feel that this is fitting. Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. So for your child to be successful at the end of the school year, it takes those small efforts that they will need to put in and day out. So the homework, the study skills, all those are small efforts that are leading up to having that big successful year at the end of the school year. So success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. And this is a quote from Robert Collier. And in compiling this information, some of it came from Study Skills by Kelly Wingate, Homework Without Tears by Lee Cantor. So there you have it. The last episode of Sped Talks Season 1. What an amazing journey this has been. I feel like we have superseded my expectation, and I say we because I really could not do it without the support that I have received, whether face to face or in my inbox, emails. You guys have been remarkable, even when I felt like I didn't want to make a video, because it takes research, and the research can be time consuming. I'm a mom, I'm in school, I work full time. So finding the time to even research and put together presentations weekly, it can be a bit much, but I enjoy this process. I enjoy the feedback, and I'm just excited for season 2. Hopefully I'll get better in terms of putting the videos together and in terms of, a little bit more comfortable in front of the camera. but it has been a good experience. So thank you for joining me on this journey. And as usual, my inboxes are open, so feel free to send me your messages, your concerns regarding your own child, a student you may have, and I will be happy to assist. But before I log off, I wanted to shout out another fabulous educator, Jamaican educator. In fact, I'm wearing her product right here, and it reads Yaardie Educator. She is a Jamaican living in the States who's doing her thing. She's a full-time educator, but she also has her business going. I will put her information in the description box just in case you guys want to support her. Until August, this is Donna Steele signing out at the end of season 1 again to say thank you. Until then.